Hi folks, my name is Linda Emmett and welcome to Happiness is an Inside Job. We are the creators of our own reality, we create our own lives. Our mind is our biggest limit and it's our own beliefs, behaviours and habits constantly caught in those cycles that keep us trapped where we are and stand in the way of our own happiness. So throughout this podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into some of those beliefs, habits and patterns, where they show up in your lives and what you can do to change them. Hi folks and welcome to season 2. I have to say I missed you and I missed recording the podcasts and we received all your requests for the different things that you want us to talk about. Thanks so much, and we will be putting out another post asking people for other topics that you want to hear more about, but we already have a top 5 to start cracking on with. And today what we're going to talk about is one that's very popular with you guys, and this is in and around feeling it before we feed it. And what are we talking about there? That is us being so uncomfortable with feeling our negative emotions or feeling discomfort. And what we do is we try and feed it or stuff it down, find ways of moving away from it. And one of the top ones on this list is anger. Anger makes us feel like a bad person. So we try and stuff down our anger, and that then in turn turns into frustration. And frustration is the absolute driver for aggression. Frustration eventually comes out in aggression, and frustration is us pushing down and stuffing down all these things that we don't want to feel. But as I say, the top of the list there is definitely anger. Underneath anger, all there is hurt or fear. Something has either frightened us or it's hurt us. Anger in itself is super healthy to feel. Anger is basically a boundary defense. When someone has breached our boundaries, we get angry, we react, and be that our physical boundaries or our emotional boundaries. So if we take first off our physical boundaries, we do not like when someone comes into or too close to our personal space. Imagine, if you want there, someone standing, talking to you 2 inches, an inch away from your face. And you can literally, as are probably actually like me, feeling that discomfort coming up in your system when you're thinking about it. Someone literally standing, trying to talk to you in your space like that. Our nervous system begins to feel threatened. Our reaction to threat is anger. It's defense. It's to protect ourselves. And what our anger is part of our defense system. It's part of our survival mechanism. We are hardwired to feel some of these emotions. So why is it so uncomfortable for us to feel it? And why do we try so much to feed it instead? And I'm going to, in a moment, share some of my experiences with that and the impacts it has on me and some of the stuff that I do to try and work through it. So, looking at where that comes from. When we are children, babies, one of our essential needs, one of our essential emotional needs as part of our learning and growth is to be able to be free to express all our emotions. Like if you think of a baby in a cot, wanting to be picked up or wanting to be fed or wherever they want, wherever their need is. At first, they might make noises, they might call out. Then they'll go into a whimper, a bit of a cry. That's them getting upset, wanting the attention or wanting a need met. Then, if they're getting upset and that still nobody is coming, what they'll then go into is anger. They're angry that nobody is coming. So that cry that they're making will turn into a scream. It'll turn into rage. They might start throwing things around. They're having a tantrum. They're trying to get their needs met in the only way they know how. And that's what we do as children until we learn better ways of doing it. What the child is looking for, to be soothed, to be connected with, and to be comforted, and to understand that that they're okay, that their feelings is okay, because a baby cannot regulate themselves. We need and rely on our parents, our caregivers to regulate us. So as a baby, if we don't get that anger soothed and regulated, if we're given out to, or if nobody comes, we learn then that the anger isn't okay. And from that then, as we move on, as we're grown from children, every time our anger is met with more anger, we then can get into the space of repressing it, of stuffing it down. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to express our emotions in that way. It's not okay. And that is, as I say, built in as part of our defense system. It's how we react to someone being in our personal boundaries or not meeting our emotional needs. And if that happens in childhood, we then grow up as grown-ass adults who don't think it's okay to feel anger at all. Another thing that plays a part in this is when we're growing up again, we're taught, you're either good or you're bold. And we then go on to think you're either, a good person or a bad person. None of us wants or actively seeks to be a bad person. So we'll try our absolute best to be good, to meet other people's needs, to be there for other people, to care for other people, to get the love that we need. And anything bad or any bad behaviours, we don't want to show. We push down, we hide, we put in the shadow self, we put in the back of the closet of our emotions, and irregardless, our feelings need to be felt. So if we're not expressing our healthy anger, it's coming out in other ways, or we are feeding it to get it down, to push it down. We are feeding it in some way, be it with the things we're doing, be it with using alcohol, using cigarettes, using numbing out behaviours, using anything we can. Every time we feel a little bit of that coming up in our system, we start we move away from the situation, we move away from the conversation, or we start stuffing these things down. So what we're doing is we're effectively feeding it rather than feeling it. This stuffing it down tends to make us feel worse. What happens is we get angry at ourselves, we get frustrated at ourselves. We're telling ourselves we're weak because we didn't stand up for ourselves, we didn't say what we wanted to say, we didn't defend ourselves, we allowed our own healthy boundaries to be breached, we agreed to do things we didn't want to agree to do. All of these things start showing up, and the root behind that is we never really learned how to express healthy anger, how to talk about how we're feeling in a healthy way. And because we've never learned that, we start pulling in lots of different behaviours instead to help us manage it. And as I said, the role our overall emotions play in our lives is to invite in more of what we want, or to keep out a lot of what we don't want. Like, or as I say, anger. Anger is in play as part of our defense mechanism to keep people from breaching our boundaries, from getting too physically close. You'll see it, and you even look at animals and how they express their anger. An animal will, if something gets too close, they feel threatened, they'll growl, they'll snarl, they'll give off a warning. We learned over time it's not even okay to do that. That makes you look bad, that makes you a bad person, and therefore we shut it down and we can allow things to happen to us. This frustration then builds up in the background, and then it can come out either in, as I say, our behaviours we use to repress it, or in explosive anger when it is built up so much within our system, we're like a pressure cooker. Emotions like that don't just dissipate and disappear. They build up over time. Your mind is remembering them. And then when it comes to a smaller scenario or a different situation, something happens, something smaller, but it irritates you enough or frustrates you enough. And like that, you blow the lid because you've been stuffing down all the small things that made you angry. And then we're there feeling hugely guilty or filled with shame because we've reacted or responded to a much smaller situation. And it tends to be with our loved ones, because That's our safest space. We know they're not going to walk away completely. We're not going to lose them. But over time, it can have a massive impact on our relationships if we're feeding our anger as opposed to actually feeling our anger. So what can we do to start changing that up? One thing is, and this is something that I'm on my own path of discovery with, is recognizing when you're feeling anger. When you're frustrated, what's upsetting you? What boundary do you think it is that people are breaching? What are they coming in on? We tend to be, a lot of the time, angry at ourselves rather than other people. We're angry at ourselves because we didn't say what we promised ourselves we'd say, stand up for ourselves, as I say, not allow people breach our boundaries, hurt us, do all of those things. So why is it that we're not speaking up? What is it that we're afraid to say? What's the fear that's running in the background? Because when you get to the root of that, that's where you can change your communication and start owning the whole array of emotions that we feel and dealing with them and managing them in a much healthier ways, as opposed to using behaviors to stuff them down. And as like an example of that for me is this week in particular. It's been a great week in a lot of ways, but I've had, it's been very, very busy with clients, which I absolutely love. But in that, I can hear about a lot of sadness, a lot of pain, a lot of people treating themselves badly, being hurt, and they're beautiful, amazing people. And you're hearing this, and if I'm not managing my own self-care in the background and taking care of my energy, I can tend to carry the weight of that in ways, carry the energy of that, and be feeling quite sad myself. And then what I'll do is I'll look to move away from that. I'm off the vape 4 weeks now. I smoked for decades, then I moved on to the vape, and now I've recently given up the vape. The vape was like my soother. Every time I was feeling something, that bad boy was stuffed in my mouth, and that stuffed down that emotion. I literally vaped it away, or so I thought. No, that's not reality. That wasn't really happening. But to me, that was subconsciously, that was my coping mechanism. When I removed that, I had to learn more about managing my own emotions and my own feelings. When I look at me today, I had a huge urge to go to the shops and buy a packet of cigarettes. So I could feel that building up in my system, like I really wanted a cigarette. And I had to ask myself, well, what is it you think you're going to get from the cigarette? What is it you think you're going to find there? I was carrying, as I say, a huge amount of sadness from all the things I've heard and seen in this particular week. And behind that, or along with that, I'm angry sometimes at what happens to people, the cards that they're dealt, the pain that they're in. As I say, my clients are beautiful, absolutely amazing. And they're just stuck in places they don't want to be in. They're feeling things, or they're acting out, or their behaviours are out of control, whatever the reasons. And I get angry sometimes in hearing what has happened to them, that there's only a level that I can change or help with, or all these different things. And I tend to turn to things myself when I'm feeling angry, hence this podcast. I feed it rather than feel it, and I'm practicing myself. So I had to sit today and look and go, well, what is it? What's the reason you want to smoke? The reason I wanted to smoke was absolute anger. What's behind me anger? It's just sadness. It's sometimes how sad the world can be, and the awful things that happen to people, be it disease, loss, breakups of relationships, struggles with alcohol, the whole array of things. Sometimes the sadness of it and what people suffer through, and above all, what they think about themselves as opposed to who they are, how they treat themselves. And I was reacting to a huge amount of that. So it's sitting with yourself and learning and understanding what it is that's sitting behind it, what it is that you're really feeling that's driving you to the food, that's driving you to the alcohol, to the whatever your mechanism. We've so many. We're phenomenal. Your brain is super at finding things to stop you feeling, but you will feel them in other ways. So learning to recognize your emotions and to manage them and to tell yourself it is okay to feel anger at times. Shit happens, bad things happen us. Life happens us. We don't always react and respond the way we think we should. We're not always the hero. We're not always the brave. There's times we can't be the protector, there's times we're helpless. And it's okay to be angry about all of those things. It's how you manage that, what you do to manage that. And that's where your mindfulness comes in. First, recognizing what it is that you're feeling, letting yourself off the hook, telling yourself, kicking out any old social religious beliefs you may have in there that you're either a good or bad person. Ain't none of us built like that. We have a whole house of emotions that we're supposed to feel at times. And it's not about not feeling it. It's about not turning it internal and taking it out on yourself with the feeding it, and then self-hatred or self-loathing or feeling out of control kicks in. So not feeding it and not living in it, not living in anger, living in sadness. It's moving yourself through, and that's where your self-care usually comes in. And as I'm often saying, self-care is learning to parent yourself. All those needs that possibly, for whatever reason, were not met, or all that understanding that you may not have got about anger or different emotions when you were younger. You can do that for yourself now. We can change the narrative, rebuild our story, and recreate from here, just by learning healthier ways to deal with and manage our emotions. And as I said, I lived it. When I first gave up drinking, I took up running, and I was the angriest runner in the world. Literally the anger. But that was where a lot of the pent up rage, hurt, sadness, all of that came out. And anger is, as I say, a part of our defense mechanism. So anger tends to sit in front of our hurt and our sadness and our pain. And what's underneath that is all our love and feelings and who we really are. So working our way through all of that pent up crap gets rid of it. It allows you to release it and move on, move into the rest of the emotions that you have. So learning to parent yourself is, one, asking yourself what the emotion is that you're feeling. Anger, rage, frustration. For a lot of us, it tends to be frustration because we've been pushing down a lot. Be it in our workspace, with loved ones, we've been trying to care so much and love and give so much, we fail to get our own needs met in ways because we may have learned that that wasn't okay. We may have learned to be accepted, to belong, to fit in. You meet others' needs. So it's learning to meet your own needs, looking at what it is that you want or you need in the moment, and learning to communicate that, learning to ask for what you want, learning to open up to your own vulnerability, which is scary. We don't like feeling vulnerable. We're better in some spaces than others, but we do have the fear of, being judged, being rejected, or failing. But they are just fears. Most of the time we're making them up from past experience. We're pulling them in. They're not real. And a lot of the time when you do open up and communicate and ask for what you want or you need, you find out that the other person was looking for the exact same things or wanted to have that communication. But at the very, very least, you stood up for yourself, you parented yourself, you held your own boundaries, and you've started to meet your own needs. And that's the main thing, because the relationship that you are in with you are in from womb to tomb. So what you want for your well-being and your happiness is 100% knowing how to express your emotions, because they will absolutely come out another way. You can be guaranteed. And if they're festering inside you constantly, this is where our body starts to break down. This is where we start getting ill. We're not sleeping. As I say, we're pulling in lots of behaviors to deal with it. We're reacting and responding, we're breaking down our relationships, but also our body is starting to break down because it's carrying toxic stress. It's carrying that energy of anger and rage around with it constantly. And with that, you're feeling that anger, you're giving off that energy, and you're feeling pretty shitty about yourself. None of us are happy when we're angry. We're either feeling one or the other. So looking at ways, as I say, that you can start building in for you, or even bringing in a sport. As I say, I run, I go to the gym. I have healthy ways of expressing my anger. Does it always work? Absolutely not. I'm human. I let myself off the hook. At the moment, I am still working on the elements of road rage that I have that show up. For some reason, I feel quite threatened, so I react with aggression. My defenses kick in, and my reaction is aggression. Whether it's beeping, whether it's slowing down, ludicrous behaviours that could bring me harm. And that's the one that I'm working on and continuing my ongoing battle of recognising that the vape or cigarettes do not serve me, that I just have to learn to feel and manage what it is that I'm feeling. If it's anger, if it's sadness, it's looking after my own self-care, parenting myself. And that's true for all of us. So, folks, instead of going out and bashing your neighbour because of the height of his trees, what we want to be doing is tapping on your neighbour's door. Hiya, how's it going? Listen, you know that tree in your garden? Well, this is the impact it's having on me. And having that conversation, communication. If that doesn't work, bring your hatchet the next time. I'm only kidding, only joking, which is okay, guys. Till next time, chat to you soon. Have a beautiful week. Bye-bye.